Welcome to episode 42 of the Cycling Europe podcast, and I've escaped my home studio for the little valley where I live, and I've headed all the way up to a place called Dean Head Reservoir. And if you're familiar with my corner of West Yorkshire, you'll know that, and you'll probably know that it's the little reservoir that sits above Scamandin Water, which is the reservoir that many people know because they drive on top of the wall as they cross the Pennines from one side of the country to the other across Scamandin Dam. Now, I thought I'd head out. I'm not on the bike, by the way. I am on 2 feet. I thought I'd head out because it was such a beautiful morning and I could do with the exercise. So I'm now heading back home. This is the second attempt to actually record this. I did start by recording when I was sitting by the reservoir wall at Dean Head, but basically I started freezing. So I thought, well, no, I'm going to do this on the move, which is why I might sound slightly out of breath. I'm heading uphill. Right, so in this episode of the podcast, we're going to be hearing from, two groups of people. We're going to have a monologue later on from some people who embarked on a cycling trip last year, which took in quite a few of the national parks of Britain, and they're going to be explaining what the link was between their cycle and the national parks. And in a few moments we're going to be listening to two people from Berlin, Iris and Jan, and they set off again last year on a trip that potentially will take them all the way around the world. But again, just as the people in the monologue you'll hear later, they kind of had an ulterior motive for doing the cycle. For them it was the national parks. For Iris and Jan, it was to, as they cycle, to highlight the stigma that can be associated with mental health. So we'll hear from them in a few moments. I'm also going to take the opportunity in this podcast of reflecting upon where I am with my planning for my trip to cycle around much of the Baltic Sea this summer. If you remember from episode 41 of the podcast, we heard from a chap called Bernd Shadowski, and he cycled the entire route of the Baltic Sea cycle route, Eurovelo 10, back, I think it was 2018, I think. Could have been 2019, I forget. Anyway, you'll have to go back and listen to him. But after we've heard from Iris and Jan, I'm going to be reflecting upon where I am with my planning for July and August of this year. But as I arrive at a particularly steep bit of hill, where I'm going to become increasingly out of breath, that would seem like the best time to stop talking and hear from Iris and Jan, who I spoke to earlier in January. I do sound as though I'm half asleep in the questions, so I apologise for that. Hopefully Jan and Iris make up for it with their enthusiasm. So I started, as I frequently do, by asking them to introduce themselves.
I'm Iris. I'm born and raised in Berlin. I'm 44 years old, just had a birthday a few days ago. I'm a social worker and project owner of Cycling for Society, and as such, at the moment, traveling the world by bicycle.
I'm Jan. I also was born in Berlin and also raised in Berlin. I'm 35 years old. Normally, I work as a consultant for data protection. Currently, I'm the co-owner of Cycling for Society, and therefore traveling the world with our social mission.
Okay, we'll come to the Cycling for Society endeavour in a few moments. Are you experienced cycle tourists?
Not at all. Actually, this is our first long distance tour ever. We had a brief trial in June last year to Poland. This was mainly in order to try our gear, which we were obviously buying in preparation for that trip. And we wanted to find out if we have everything we need, and if we're comfortable with our sleeping bags, whatever, and if we actually function well together while cycle touring. I mean, we've traveling before, but not on the bicycles. So no, this is our first big trip. So there were a lot of uncertainties before we started.
So why cycle? Why not, I don't know, why not go on a train, or why not drive, or why not take a plane and stop at various places? Why did you decide to use a bicycle?
And at first we came up with the idea to travel with the van. So with the camper van. This was our initial idea, but after some time when we thought about what could counter us, like for example, fixing the motor if something is broke or have to be repaired. And also, of course, also the money issue. Like buying a camper van is it's not cheap, and also not easy to maintain. And also because we love sport, we love cycling, and therefore we decided, yeah, why not go with our bikes? First was sounded like for us a crazy idea, but after some time, it's grown in our head. And yeah, and then in one day, as Iris also said, we bought our bikes, made a trial, and we liked it.
Yeah, this was actually funny when we decided to do the bicycle tour, because we were actually quarantined because we had contact with someone who had COVID. So we were quarantined, sitting at home and being like, we really want to go, we really want to do something. And we really want to go back and travel, because we've been traveling before COVID, and we just both were forced to come back to Berlin during, like, when the pandemic started. So we were sitting at home being super bored, and we were like, we really want to go back on track. And I was like, I don't care how we do it, and even if we do it on a bicycle, I'm gonna leave Berlin next year. So this was the first sentence, like, outspoken, where we were like, why not? Like, actually, this is not a bad idea. Like, why not on the bicycle?
So it's probably worth pointing out that you're not in Berlin at the moment. You're currently in Turkey, and I think you've been in Turkey for quite a few weeks. And we'll talk about the journey from Berlin to Turkey in a few minutes, and also your plans from, well, when you leave Turkey. I think that's imminent in the next few days, you said. The idea of cycling, did that come before the aims of your Cycling for Society project? Or did you think, right, okay, we want to do something for this particular project, and cycling would be a good way of actually making that happen? Which came first?
That's a very good question, because obviously we had cycling in our head from this very emotional event, which I just explained. But when things got precise, and we really thought about leaving, our project came first. So we had this one day, this was, I think, in January last year, when we sat and we were like, listen, let's do something meaningful. Let's quit our jobs and travel, but let's not just travel. Let's do something we really believe in, we really want to make a change in. And we had this drawing where we were thinking about the whole idea of doing an anti-stigma project for mental health. And then we were like, listen, like this sentence you said the other day about let's do it on the bicycle actually fits really well with the idea, because how can we draw more attention than being out there with a bike where everyone stops you anyway, and it's like, what are you doing here? Like, why the fuck traveling by bike? So this is basically came very close together. But yeah, basically cycling is a method to promote mental health here. So, and we thought it's the best way, to do it.
But also it was also our big dream to try the world and see the world. And for us, traveling by bike is also to come out of our comfort zone. We don't want just to travel. We wanted something, meaningful.
So how has adopting the Cycling for Society project, how does that make the cycle trip different? What are you doing which actually makes your journey different from if you just simply set off from Berlin with the intention of cycling around the world? In practical terms, how does it change the trip?
Well, in practical terms, it changes the trip in a way that we have to plan ahead much more than we wanted to. And we have to promote the trip much more than we wanted to. For example, in the beginning, we were like, no, we're not going to use social media in order to talk about what we do here. Because we really wanted to go very deep into the project itself. And also, I mean, we wanted to... we wanted this trip also to be something where we can grow from, and not wasting time on editing videos and telling everyone on Facebook or Instagram like what we do. But we realized very fast that we cannot talk about mental health and stigma without including society. I mean, we are cycling for society, so we have to include society. And this is I mean, now it became part of our routine, but in the beginning it was like super frustrating because it's very time consuming, and like obviously not everyone you're interacting with in social media is like pro what we do, and you know, like very empathetic. Like obviously we get critiques and stuff like this. And other than that, on practical terms, I mean, we underestimated it also, like how much work it would be to work on a project like this and cycling at the same time, because cycling itself, we figured out it's a full-time job. So, and then doing the research on the organizations we are contacting, and renting hostels more often than we wanted, because we have to sit and work, and we need Wi-Fi. And when we meet people for interviews, obviously we have to wash and dress up properly, and cannot just come out of the tent completely sweaty. So things like this, we actually, we thought this is gonna be a little easier than it actually is. But so yeah, this is how it's changing our trip. Like we work a lot, like much more than we thought we would.
And you mentioned meeting people. Who are you meeting? Are you meeting people who have mental health issues? Are you meeting people who are not so well versed when it comes to what the issues are of mental health? Are you working in schools? Are you working in hospitals? Are you working with youth groups? Who are you actually meeting as you cycle?
So, I mean, there is very different, I call it audience within society, which we are targeting. So first of all, obviously, it's what we call affected people, like the target group itself, and their relatives. Interesting enough, before we started, I had one theory for my research, which was like every family in the world has an affected family member or friend. If we contact people, like let's say just warm showers, couch surfing, being on a campground, like just the normal interaction between people like every other bicycle tourists have, and then talk about mental health, we always like 100% in every case so far figured out that like either the person we were talking to was affected themselves or had an affected family member. And then a really fruitful conversation was starting. And sometimes they introduced us to other friends and family members. And so they're regular people we met on tour. And other than that, we speak to employees of organizations who are doing basically the work I've been doing before, like social work with what we call mentally ill people. Because also another theory I had before we started is like a lot of stigmatization actually happens from professionals towards the target group. So we wanted to research about that, and also here again, like reducing the stigmatization. So we talk a lot to organizations and employees of organizations like NGOs, institutions, whatever. And the last group we talk to is universities, because obviously education has to start somewhere. There's two groups, like two target groups here. One is social workers, psychologists, and like other people who work actually with the target group. And the other is like just any kind of student who's interested in the topic or not, and we just still get them the both.
And are you recording the interviews that you have? Are you filming them? Is the plan to make a website, online resource, or is it to write a book or to make a film? What's the ultimate aim of the trip?
We are researching. When we are talking to people, like to institutions or universities, we have an interview, which we are recording. And we have also interview questions that we prepared before. And the ultimate goal would be an best practice paper that we can publish on our website and also share it with all the institutions and organizations who are involved.
Yeah, it's going to be open source.
So that the participants can also see the difference. So what's the problem we have in Germany, or what are the problems in different countries? So we can find the solution. I also has a nice theory which said if the regulation in the government, in the political system is not so strict, like in Germany, everything have like laws and is regulated. But in some countries, it's not the same like in Germany. They have different rules, or they have no rules or no laws at the moment. And this could be an opportunity. And so in this case, that we can find a new way of solving the problems for people with mental illness.
And I mean, this is on the academic level, but like on the non-academic level, obviously, our goal is just like to draw attention for the concerns people with mental health problems have because of stigmatization. So this is why we talk to individuals, and this is why we are currently planning online workshops, which are not targeting students only, because so far we are targeting students when we hold lectures, whatever, because I'm also employed still as a freelance in a university in Germany. So from this perspective, for me, it's easy to talk about stigma on that level. But like at the end of the day, we want to know that we actually talked to a lot of people who don't forget the conversation we had. And like so far, we have it only after 4 months on the road that people write us emails and be like, listen, we were talking about this subject. Can you write something to me? Because I'm trying to explain it to a friend, but I cannot verbalize myself so well. So maybe you want to write a little bit for me so I can share this information.
Okay, right. Well, that's the project that you're involved in, and the outcomes and how it's going to develop over the next few months. Let's get back to the cycling. You said you were novice cyclists. You've been to Poland on your bikes as a kind of a trial out with the bikes and the equipment. You set off from Berlin. Did you have a strict route in mind? You're now in Turkey. Did you know exactly what route you would be following from Berlin to Turkey?
The first milestone for us was Istanbul, Turkey. So from Berlin to Turkey, Istanbul, this was the big goal. And between that, there were like countries we knew they exist, but we were not thinking about it to enter. While we are on tour, we change our plans
all the time.
All the time, yeah, exactly. For example, we wanted to go to Serbia, but then decided not to, and therefore we entered again Bosnia and Herzegovina. So to answer the question, yes, we had the plan, but
we didn't follow it.
Exactly.
I'm just looking at your map now, and you, from Berlin, you set off, you go through Czechia, Austria, Slovenia, Croatia, Bosnia, and then Montenegro, I think, just a little bit, and then into Albania. How did you find the cycling conditions in some of those countries in the Balkans?
Super different. Depends really where you are. I mean, you can always choose in those countries, especially in Bosnia. We had this common saying, you either go with a lot of cars or with a lot of dirt, because it was either dirt roads, but like really dirt roads with huge holes and like completely destroyed from rain, and huge gravel we've never seen before, or you just ride on concrete and with a lot of cars. So we usually took the back roads, which made cycling in Bosnia for us really, really hard. Also, it's super hilly, as you probably know. So this was very challenging. But for example, countries like Albania, we were super surprised about the road conditions. Like even the back roads were not in such a bad condition. We had one road we got stuck in where we had to push the bike for 14 kilometers up the mountain and even back down because of the gravel. But this was, I think, in Albania the only time. Otherwise, the road conditions in Albania were super, like surprisingly well.
Yeah, well, it was okay to ride. Personally, I realized how many hills and mountains we have on Earth. Then in Berlin, it's very flat. When we before we started, we cycled a lot, and Berlin is just flat. And I really thought I'm in really good condition. I don't need to train. I just go. But then, when we realized reached the Balkans.
No, actually, it started before. Remember, the thing is, when we started in Czechia, because we rode the Eurovelo 7 for some time, which goes from Berlin to Linz. So, and there was a part from Prague, I don't know, like 60 kilometers south from Prague. And we were like, okay, let's just hit the road for like, usually when we were cycling in Berlin and the area around it, we did like 90 to 100 kilometers, like on a day, because it's obviously flat. And we thought, okay, Czech Republic is probably a bit hilly, not like Austria or Slovenia, like mountainous. But the Eurovelo 7 is surprisingly steep. Like the road conditions are good, like the pavement is really well, but it's super, super steep. So after 60 kilometers, I just started crying. I'm like, fuck, if this is gonna go on all the way to Turkey, I'm gonna stop right here. So we asked a local farmer if we just could camp because we didn't reach the campground. Yes. And then just, yeah.
I was going to ask about accommodation. So you are camping most of the time?
Yes, exactly. We white camp most of the time. Yeah, we just rent a hostel to work. Other than that, we were just white camping.
I know we had warm showers in between sometimes.
Yeah, that's true. Yes, warm showers and couch surfing, but mostly white camping.
Have you had any problems, any issues since leaving Berlin?
Actually, no.
No big ones.
No big ones. I mean, the biggest challenge for us in the beginning was when we started white camping. We were really insecure. So can we pitch our tent here, or do we get problem with the law, or the police is coming? So
that's very German, by the way.
I think this was the biggest challenge for us, and now it's easier for us to pitch our tent somewhere in the field, on the field.
Yeah, white camping was never a problem. We have never been sick. I mean, one day we were really unlucky with the road where we had 18 punches on one day. I think this was the worst day of our tour so far.
18?
18, yes.
Yes, 18. Well, the thing is, we didn't know that cotton like flowers have big spikes. So we crossed next to a cotton plant field. And then we had to take out all the spikes from our tires. And then we had to basically just get a new set of inner tubes for definitely his bike. Yeah, my bike was okay.
Yeah.
I'm just looking at one of your pictures of your bikes. What kind of tires have you got? You got Schwalbe Marathon Plus?
Yeah, this is mine. And before this catastrophe I just was talking about, Yanni had Schwalbe G1.
Exactly.
And they are horrible. I don't know if I can say that, if this is like negative.
No. But yes, they are the Schwalbe G1. They are super thin and they have no puncture protection. They are lightweight, and this was a big problem.
Yeah, you need Schwalbe Marathon Plus tires, and they are fantastic, and they usually, touch wood, you should potentially be almost puncture free.
I had one puncture on 6,000 kilometers.
Well, there you go. I'm sure Schwalbe will be delighted you've said that. Now, you're now in. So you arrived in Turkey. We're now in January. So you arrived in Turkey in early December. Is that right?
No, in October.
Already.
We already
Yeah.
arrived in October, and as Yanni said in the beginning, our initial thought was just to go to Istanbul and arrive by end of October in Istanbul, and then we actually wanted to hop on a plane and fly somewhere warmer. But it's basically every time we crossed the border on the strip, we changed our plans completely. So instead of cycling to Istanbul, we just did a right turn and cycled all the way south. So currently we are in Antalya, where we arrived already on the 17th of November.
Yes.
But then we decided to have a break and do a volunteering in between. This is why we stayed here for 2 months. Yeah, because A, we wanted to do something different in between, and B, there is a university here in Antalya where we were like really trying to get a cooperation with, because it's a partner university of the university I am working at. So it took some time to get this in place and everything. So this is why we were planning a longer stop here in Antalya.
So tomorrow you set off again, and what is your plan for the next few months?
For the plan at the moment is that we will fly to Oman, and we will cycle in Oman for, like, we planned for 2 months.
So the reason why we're traveling Oman is, first of all, we have to leave Turkey because we are not on a resident visa, but just on a tourist visa. So it's gonna run out next week. So this is why we have to leave the country. And we were thinking, where can we go, which is rather close and rather warm, where we can go and cycle on. And then we did some research, and Oman looks incredible for cycling. Not so many cycling tourists actually, but incredible landscapes from desert to mountains and wadis, and like it looks crazy, like really, really interesting. And we heard also Omanis are super friendly. So let's see, and hopefully on the way back we can get an interview in the University of Muscat, because apparently they have really good education for social workers.
It will be interesting to compare the Middle Eastern approach to mental health with the European approach
Very
to
much
mental
so.
health. I would imagine there are probably quite big differences there.
It depends really, because I already read there is always from the Ministry of Health of every country, you can actually get a paper of like it's a guideline for treatment of people with mental health disorders. And apparently so far, actually, I have to say Turkey has the best paper ever I've ever read, even better than Germany. It's rather new. They did it in 2019, and I already not really read it through, but overflew the one in Oman. And yeah, it looks like they really thought about it. I mean, the infrastructure is not so good, obviously, so there's not so many NGOs. It's mostly state institutions, but yeah, it's definitely interesting, but so far surprisingly better than we thought.
Am I right in thinking that you've got plans to write a cookbook for traveling cyclists?
Yeah, exactly. When we were touring, we are on a low budget, which means going to a restaurant or buying food in a store is something we can't afford, and we also don't want. And therefore, we were like every day thinking about what we are eating for tonight, or what we do for dinner. And yeah, at some point we came up with the idea that making a cookbook, which is fast meal, good meal, like for a good diet, so you have like enough energy to cycle a day and still don't waste so much time in the evening to cook.
And money.
And money. And we also took into consideration what was in the season and what was available at the moment.
That sounds really interesting. Just make sure you make it available in English as well as in German.
Oh, yeah. It will be in English and in German. We just finished the design, and now we are writing.
The layouting.
should be published while we are in Oman. So this is also something we are going to work on there while we are wild camping in the desert.
Exactly.
Where do you think you'll be in 12 months, in December of this year? Where do you think you'll have got to?
We don't know.
We really don't know.
I mean, we hopefully make it to, I mean, I don't know if it's likely to make it to Bishkek by September, October. This would be lovely. If not, then not. But this would be great. And then, I don't know, we haven't talked about where we're going to spend next winter. So, because we change our plans all the time, and then there's still COVID and we might get stuck somewhere, and we don't want to focus too much on plans, because then we don't want to get disappointed when plans don't work out. We just want to go with the flow, you know, because for us it doesn't really matter where we go, because the topic is important everywhere. And even though we've been traveling to some of the countries we are now traveling through before, still we didn't do the research and we didn't do the project. So for us, everything in this constellation we are currently traveling with is new. So it doesn't matter where we go.
And after 2022, is the plan to continue? Is it to go all the way around the world and then arrive back in Germany, back in Berlin from the West?
In some point we have to, as the research phase we are in at the moment is planned for 1 year, max 2, which means in some point we have to write the papers. And to writing the papers, our initial plan was to go back to Germany, but at the moment we don't know. This is something we have to decide where we want to write the papers.
Yeah.
But one crucial thing we have to have in mind is our insurance, because the insurance, the end point is May
2023.
Exactly.
Yeah, but then we have to go back to Germany for some time, and if it's just in order to get a new insurance. But yeah, I mean, the research paper we could write anywhere, because I mean, this project is like completely private initiated. Like, we are not supported from the university. It's just a coincidence that I work there. It's completely private initiated and privately financed. So it's all our own costs. So basically the question about when are you going to head back home is easy when our money is running out, basically.
Right, okay. And do you think when you write your research up, do you think, obviously you'll be talking about the mental health issues that you encounter in different countries and the approaches of different countries to addressing mental health issues, but to what extent do you think the cycling will be part of that final write-up piece of research?
I mean, there's two elements here. One obviously is, which is like well known, that physical interaction, like movement, is basically promoting mental health. So for this reason, it's going to be a part of the research paper as well, because also we meet cycling initiatives on the way and talk about mental health with them, and not only cycling, like other sports clubs as well.
Exactly.
And then when we talk about like especially team sport and stigma, there is a proven effect on like a positive effect in regards of reducing stigma when it comes to team sports, because when people do something together as a team, they do it together as, like, let's say cyclists or table tennis players or dancers or singers, and they don't do it this person is mental healthy, or this one is not. This one has a depression and this one doesn't. So they don't talk about this in the first place. They talk about their common goals, like the things they like, the things they do together. So there's a lot of approaches using sports, especially team sports, in order to fight stigma. So this is how this is going to be involved in our research paper as well.
Okay, and finally, how do you find traveling as a couple? Do you get on well together? Have you had any arguments? I suppose I always travel on my own, and I think, well, If I make a mistake, if I decide to go down that road, that's my problem. And I'm not going to argue with myself or feel bad with myself. It's just one of those things. But I imagine if you're traveling as a couple, then are there tensions on the road?
Definitely. Definitely.
I mean, the most tension, to be honest, we have regarding the work, because it's not to underestimate to work together as a couple, and then not only working together, but on top of that, spending 24/7 together. Because both of us, I was traveling alone most of my life. I was always a solo traveler, not by bike, but I was backpacking. So for me, it was I really had to get used to travel with someone in the first place, and then being surrounded by my partner all the time. Even in Berlin, we only saw each other on the weekends, so this was something we had to get used to. And then the most arguments we have when it comes to work things, because as I said before, we really underestimated how much work this project is gonna take. And we are sitting on the bike, and then we talk, and then we forgot this, we have to do this, we have to contact this person, and we forgot this. And then it's getting stressful, and then it's okay, you do this, no, but I already have to do that, and then we start fighting sometimes. So this can happen, obviously, but I think this is quite normal, spending so much time together plus working together as a couple. But on the road,
no.
No, nothing significant.
Long may that continue, and good luck with the rest of your trip and the rest of your research. Where can people follow your trip? What's the best way that people can keep up to date with where you are, or find out more about the Cycling for Society endeavor?
So as I said before, we have a lot of social media set up by now. So we have, first of all, a website which Jan is taking care of, which is www.cyclingforsociety.org. And from there, there's all those social media channels to be found. But other than that, we are on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram. Did I forget something? No.
No.
That's it.
Exactly. Facebook, Instagram, YouTube.
Yeah.
Okay, well, good luck with the rest of your trip, and I look forward to perhaps speaking to you again in 2023 or 2024 when you've finally returned to Berlin.
Thank you very much. Good luck for you too.
Thanks to Iris and Jan. Now, as you're listening to that, I've managed to climb the hill, so I'm no longer out of breath. Now, heading on a flat bit. You can probably hear the roar of the motorway in the far distance. Fortunately, I can't see it. Now, I dare say Iris and Jan, wherever they are, whether it's in the Middle East now or whether they've moved on, it's probably a darn sight warmer where they are than this morning. The sun's gone behind the clouds and it's getting decidedly chilly, but hey, it is the middle of the British winter, end of January. Anyway, looking forward to warmer times this summer. Now, I said I'd spend a few moments just reflecting upon where I am with my plans to cycle around the Baltic, and hopefully you had a chance to listen to Bernd Szydowski talking about his experiences of cycling around the Baltic back in, I think it was 2018 or 2019, partly with his son, but for most of it on his own. Now, he did the whole thing, setting off from Lübeck and returning to Lübeck a few months later. My plan is a little bit different. I don't have the amount of time that he had available, so I'll be trying to do it over about 2 months. Now, my previous long trips in Europe, I am a teacher, so I do have that advantage of having the long summer holidays to make use of. And when I set off in 2010 to cycle to southern Italy, I did it in about 5.5 weeks. That was fine. 2013, I took an extra few weeks off work. Fortunately, my head teacher at the time, she was happy to do that, and it took me about 2 months. And then in 2015, when I cycled from Spain to Norway, that again was made possible, well, bit more dramatic that time because I decided to quit my job, as I explain in the book, and then head off on, well, I was away for about 5.5 months altogether, after having spent some time in Spain trying to learn Spanish. So anyway, I'm still a teacher, and I've actually just started a new permanent job, but the job that I've got is what is known as a 0.8 teacher. Basically that means I work 80% of the time. So for a lot of teachers, if they've got a fixed timetable, that will probably be working Monday to Thursday or Tuesday to Friday and having an extra day off, so for a long weekend. A little bit different because the nature of what I do in the school where I'm now working is basically I fill in for absent teachers. I'm kind of an in-house supply teacher, if you like. Basically, that 0.2 that I don't work is very flexible. So what I've arranged with the school is that over the course of the academic year, they will choose half of the days when they don't want me to work, and I will choose half of the days when I don't want to work. And it makes sense for me, if I want to head out around the Baltic, to choose the days immediately before the summer holidays. So basically I've been able to extend my summer holiday for 2022 by 2 weeks. So basically I've got 8 weeks to get around the Baltic. Now, the other thing that I've kind of decided to do is that I've got out of my system this idea of cycling all the way from A to B, as I did from southern England to southern Italy, and then from Greece to Portugal, and then the last major trip from Spain to Norway, from Tarifa to Nordkapp. So what I'm going to be doing with the Baltic, I'm going to be taking a mixture of different forms of transport, and I'm going to be taking obviously a few ferries. It would be impossible to do the Baltic without taking ferries, certainly from northern England. And I'm also going to be taking probably some trains, perhaps some buses. So the current thinking is, at the end of the first week in July, when I start my summer holiday, I'm going to take the ferry over to Rotterdam. I'm then going to immediately jump on a train up to the kind of northwestern corner of the Netherlands, and then cycle along the coast of the Netherlands through into Germany, and then for the last little bit towards Kiel, I'm going to take a train. And I have to be in Kiel on, I think it's Friday the 14th of July. I haven't got my calendar in front of me, so I hope that date's right. But Friday the 14th of July is when I'm taking the ferry from Kiel all the way to a place called Klaipėda in Lithuania. Now, my major change since coming up with this idea is actually I've reversed the direction that I'm going to travel in. My initial plan was to head clockwise, and I'm actually going to do it anti-clockwise because of this issue with Kaliningrad, that exclave of Russia, that somehow, well, I could go and get a visa for it, but hey, the present situation with Ukraine and Russia and the West is not looking brilliant. That may play its part, I hope it doesn't, but that may play its part in the Baltic countries. God forbid, hope not. But anyway, I've taken the decision to cut Kaliningrad out of the equation, and by taking the ferry from Kiel to Klaipėda, that's exactly what I can do. Then cycle north through the 3 Baltic states, Lithuania, Latvia, Estonia. Take the ferry, again, it depends on what happens over the course of the next few months, I suppose, with Russia and Ukraine. It would be good if I could take the ferry to St. Petersburg. When you buy your ticket, apparently it gives you a 72-hour visa, but it may be that I have to just cut to the chase and head straight for Helsinki, but that's something I can hopefully decide at the time. It would be good to see St. Petersburg, but let's see what happens there. Once in Finland, now I'd like to travel around the Gulf of Bothnia, which is the kind of the big bit that sticks up out of the north of the Baltic. Well, it is part of the Baltic. It doesn't stick out of it. It is part of the Baltic, but it's also known as the Gulf of Bothnia. You can take trains from the south of Finland up to the north, which is probably what I'll do, and then I'll cycle a few hundred kilometres over the border into Sweden, and then continue cycling south until a point where I can either jump on a train or get a bus which will take the bike. Now, I've been warned recently that actually taking a bike on a train in Sweden, the longer distance trains, is actually not easy, in fact impossible, unless it's a fold-in dismantleable bike. There are buses, however, that go from a place called Umeå, which might extend the cycle a little bit further south into Sweden before I can jump on a public form of transport, so that needs to be investigated a bit more. I suppose an alternative would be simply, when I get to Finland, is to head to the islands that kind of fill the gap between Finland and Sweden, near Stockholm. They've been recommended. They're supposedly beautiful places, so that's a possibility. But that would mean I would cut out also the Gulf of Bothnia, which would be a pity. And then, well, the final bit of the trip would be relatively straightforward, coming through Sweden, southern Sweden, getting the ferry back to the other side, probably down to Germany, and that would then allow me to cycle some of the German coast, perhaps pop into Poland and experience a little bit of Poland, but then cycle back to the west along the North German coast, which is basically the bit that I will have cut out by taking the ferry from Kiel to Klaipeda right at the beginning. And from there, I'll be back to my friends who live in Hamburg. I say back because I visited them twice back in 2015 when I was cycling from Spain to Norway. So that's the plan. As ever, it's a plan that evolves, and I would imagine some of the details that I've just given there will change significantly between now and the beginning of July, not least because of this issue with Russia and Ukraine, and I just hope that that doesn't impact in travelling through the Baltic states. God forbid. I really do hope that that's not the case, but time will tell. I'm just hoping that Mr. Putin decides to keep his soldiers out of Ukraine. But it does look, I'm fairly confident that the thing that won't affect travel for the summer of 2022, certainly within Europe, is COVID. It looks to me as though we're beginning to live with COVID, and hopefully that won't be a problem travelling at least within Europe. I dare say it might still be an issue travelling a little bit further afield, which is basically, well, I cancelled my trip to Japan twice. That is very much now on the back burner. Perhaps one day, once COVID is a long forgotten thing. Right, so that's my plan for the Baltic. If you've got any thoughts on that, please do get in touch at Cycling Europe across social media, or by emailing podcast@cyclingeurope.org. Now, my walk around Scamandin water continues, and I'm now within eyesight, although you can't really hear it. You can kind of in the distance, but you can certainly see the M62, and I'm being observed by the looks of it by a drone. There's a drone in the sky, or is it a plane? A very small plane is approaching me. I think that might be a drone. How weird. No, it's a plane. It's a plane, definitely. Wings are far too big for a drone. You'll probably hear it in a second now. So we've heard from Iris and Jan. They're talking about their trip around the world to highlight the stigma of mental health. You've heard about my trip, my proposed trip to the Baltic in the summer of 2022. We're now going to go back to the summer of 2021 and hear from a couple of people who decided to cycle the length of Britain, taking in quite a few of the national parks. This is a monologue, no questions, so I'll hand the microphone over to them.
Hi, I'm Isaac Kenyon, founder of Pedal for Parks. In my day job, I'm an energy transition analyst. Alongside this, I'm a trustee for the mental health charity Mind. I've rowed across the Atlantic Ocean in 40 days, swam the English Channel in a relay, and I have a world record for the longest continual row on an indoor rowing machine, 83 hours non-stop. None of that is to do with cycling. I know this is a cycling podcast. So to sum up my previous experience in cycling, really quickly, before Pedal for Parks, I had never ridden a road bike before. Our 2-week-long adventure was a world-first cycle over sea and land based in the UK, which is what we're about to tell you about. Yep, you heard it right. We cycled over sea, over gravel tracks, and over tarmac in one epic bikepacking journey. I'm joined with Alex.
Hello everyone, I'm Alex Piero, and I've been involved with Pedal for Parks since the start. I'm a French IT engineer working for a trading firm in London. My only road cycling feat of note prior to the Pedal for Parks expedition was completing the Ride London 100 in 2019. Beforehand, I was a keen rugby player and powerlifter. I'm a survivor of severe clinical depression with suicidal intent, and I'm very proud of the rapid progress I have made since attending a psychiatric hospital in spring 2019. I'm so glad that I can now provide insight and hope to others who are suffering from similar mental health issues. My principal motivation for this project is to highlight the vast number of brilliant and viable climate solutions that need rapid scaling up to preserve the marvelous natural world that we're a part of.
Pedal for Parks started out as a combination of wanting to cycle the length of the UK with a group of friends and a shared frustration with not enough being done to protect and preserve our green spaces. These are essential for our physical and mental health, as well as biological ecosystems. You hear a lot of negative headlines in the press about climate change, with lots of complaining. To counter this, we wanted to find climate solutions that are not getting the credit and attention they deserve, and help them to rise above the negativity by producing a film documentary showing our adventure and highlighting these brilliant initiatives.
We undertook a journey as a team, transforming ourselves to become more environmentally responsible with our adventures. We have become eco-adventurers who are now trying to inspire others and share our message on how we can all become more sustainable and eco while still leading a normal day-to-day life. The United Nations COP26 is focused on nature this year, and our expedition focused around this too. There are many reasons why we want to encourage the protection of nature, such as reduction of biodiversity loss, to create a new and maintain existing green corridors for safe animal movements, and finally, to reduce carbon emissions.
So in saying that we wanted to do a climate solutions project and also a cycle, we devised a route to connect several of these solutions together. We undertook the traditional John O'Groats to Land's End cycle route, which goes across the full length of the UK, and tweaked it a little. The first thing we did was reroute to include as many national parks as possible. Secondly, we added a water bike crossing either side of the route, making this the adventure the first of its kind, and allowing us to connect the Isles of Scilly and Orkney. These are both renewable energy sustainable hubs, which featured in our route, and they would make for some interesting conversations, especially around tidal and wind energy. We would love to share our journey with you now, so we're going to go through the key highlights of our trip.
Our journey started in mid-June at the tiny village of Bursay, located at the northwesternmost tip of mainland Orkney. From there, we cycled through many of Orkney's ancient relics, like Skara Brae, a 5,000-year-old ancient settlement, and saw loads of wildlife, such as killer whales, birds, and seals. We wild camped on the cliffs at the harbour in Berwick, South Orkney, which we were going to set off from for our water bike crossing. The next morning, we got up at 4 a.m, ready to ride the waves, and embarked on our first water bike crossing to John O'Groats. To do this, we needed to cycle over one of the most dangerous tidal streams in the world, the Pendant First, navigating past eddies and whirlpools. At times, the tide could have reached 15 miles an hour. Fortunately, This crossing was completed in 2 hours, and we were very lucky to have been guided by an experienced sailor from the area.
Having done the successful crossing, we arrived at John O'Groats, the most northeasterly point of mainland UK. We took a photo at the famous landmark, then jumped onto our gravel bikes to cycle along the Scottish Highland coastline, first visiting the enigmatic puffins at Dunet's Head. We cycled the east coast of the North MC 500 route down to the first national park of our trip, the Cairngorms. This area was the wildest we visited, and we did a lot of gravel riding. We spoke to Alan, a national park ranger, about the growing pressures of tourism and the range of conservation school programs that were being introduced across the UK as part of the curriculum. This will certainly make an impact for future generations to respect these areas. We wild camped at Loch Morlick, which sat just below the Cairngorms mountain range, and some of us had a revitalizing swim in the lake.
Over the next 2 days, we went off-road onto single and dirt tracks. It was quite a gravel and oftentimes mountain bike experience. Our bikes took a beating, and so did we. We ascended a lot of elevation in a short distance and saw some of the most wild and rugged terrain of the entire trip. It was quite a marvel to be amongst the mountains like this. We got lost a few times in the middle of nowhere with no signal and just our downloaded GPX files for coordinates. Every now and then, we resurfaced from the wild onto normal roads, such as when we met up with the Woodland Trust to discuss a successful restoration project they've been working on in Glenfinglas within the Loch Lomond and the Trossachs National Park. We also met up with our kit sponsor Endura, who are attempting to be a carbon negative company by offsetting their supply chain's carbon footprint through rewilding projects in Scotland and abroad.
After the Loch Lomond and the Trossachs National Park, the next 2 days we left the beautiful scenery of Scotland behind us and ventured into England. The cycle through urban chaos of Glasgow reminded us all why we needed to protect our green spaces. We were, however, treated to a flat route from Glasgow to Carlisle that quickly came to an end once we reached the Lake District, our next national park, which was teeming with tourists due to the pandemic-induced staycation effect. The pressures of over-tourism in this national park were striking to see.
Leaving the Lake District behind us, we cycled through many towns with little interconnecting green corridors, sadly, densely populated areas, and very large infrastructure projects, like the proposed HS2. Eventually, 200 kilometers from the lakes, we reached the Shropshire Hills, and green space returned to us. Following this, we nipped into the Brecon Beacons National Park, where we met up with Sustrans, discussing the work they are doing in improving access to green spaces and national parks via cycling and public transport, which is currently quite poor in Wales. Such work is much needed and is key to improve the physical and mental well-being of the local population. After this, we headed down the Wye Valley area of natural beauty and over the Severn Bridge. Once in Bristol, we cycled over Clifton Suspension Bridge and ventured into Somerset to head down the famous Cheddar Gorge.
After getting to the bottom of Cheddar Gorge, we had a camp, and then we headed over the Quantock Hills and across into our next national park, which was Exmoor. The weather on this day was extremely foggy due to the low clouds, making it very mysterious to enter this national park. For anyone who has watched Harry Potter, it was like the Forbidden Forest, but there wasn't any freaks of nature in the park. We met up with another ranger too, who showed us a restoration project, which they had been working on for 20 years. He was very excited about the biodegradable spiral guards for tree planting, which were a new invention. They have been trialled as replacements for the conventional plastic-based tubes used in the past, and it prevents a lot more pollution.
Following Exmoor, we cycled to Dartmoor, which is another epic moorland, and visited another park ranger, who discussed the importance of restoring peatland bogs to improve water catchment and mitigate flooding risks. Additionally, these bogs have 5 times the carbon storing potential of trees, which shows just how important it is to preserve and restore these spots.
Once we were in Dartmoor, it marked our transition into Cornwall, where our diets changed to Cornish pasties, and the sun returned to us as we cycled the epic coastlines and ventured over gravel at Bodmin Moor. We cycled past Lizard Point, the most southerly point of mainland UK, and then cycle towards Land's End, the most southwesterly point of mainland UK, finishing our joggle route in 12 days. Another team of cyclists who also did the same joggle route, maybe not exactly the same, different types of journey, came up to us and said, "Hey, would you like to celebrate with us down the pub? Travel tomorrow around Cornwall." Sure, that sounds great, but our journey's not over yet. We're going to cycle over sea to the Isles of Scilly. At that moment, it just blew their mind and we all laughed.
At 8 a.m. the next morning, the conditions were perfect. This waterbike crossing was a lot further in distance than the first crossing, 53 kilometers as opposed to 12. However, after 2 weeks of pure cardio, we were a lot fitter, so we actually cycled at a faster pace here than we did during the first crossing. We had a lot more to avoid as well, and mainly ships in one of the busiest shipping lanes around the Baltic Sea. We also needed to avoid a lighthouse at the beginning, which had very dangerous rip currents. Finally, the weather and tide states can change quite dramatically out at sea, which could have made or broken our crossing. It was also very, very hot that day, for British standards at least, with a lot of sun exposure, so we were sure to stock up on sun cream, fluids, and our nice bamboo sunglasses.
At times, whilst we were cycling, we couldn't see land at all, so we had to deal with that disposition as well, although having a support boat did help. Our world's first was very eventful. We were quite close to cargo ships in shipping lanes at times, and there were lots of sailing boats waving at us, wishing us luck. To our delight, halfway through the cycle, we were greeted by a pod of dolphins, which was one of the most emotional moments of the trip. We were even spotted by a passenger aboard a plane bound for the Isles. As we came into sight of land and the crowd started to cheer, everything quickly took to a turn for the worse, as both our propellers got caught in the seaweed, and we ended up having to swim the water bikes to shore, so we didn't get to quite finish the entire cycle properly. After cycling for 8 hours with a little bit of swimming thrown in, we made it to Hewtown Harbour on the Isles of Scilly and were greeted by our support team, friends, and some curious locals.
In total, we cycled 1,121 miles, 40 of which were over water, ascended 20,000 meters of elevation, visited 6 national parks, and conducted 25 interviews with different climate solution projects. This was our epic adventure, which we documented in a film. It has already been selected for Kendal Mountain Festival next month, one of the largest outdoor adventure film festivals in Europe. We also have a 24-hour online film premiere in partnership with Adventure Uncovered and Pause.tv, which will be on the 24th of November.
To find out more about us, our adventure, our film, and what we're doing next, please check us out online at pedalforparks.co.uk. The 4 is a number 4. We're on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn. All of our social media handles are at pedal4parks, again with the number 4. Thanks for listening to our story. We would love to hear from you, so please do get in touch.
Just passing over the bridge over the M62, there's a couple of cyclists, one going very fast in the direction of Halifax, the other one a bit more slowly in my direction. Oh, it's a cold day to be out cycling. Found a quieter spot to round off the podcast. There are actually quite a few cyclists around and about, and once you get out of the wind, out of the exposed places like that bridge that I was just crossing, it's not too bad. I wonder if any of the cyclists are doing the West Yorkshire cycle route. I've never done it myself, but I do see signs for it regularly. I would imagine it's a pretty hilly route, circular route all the way around West Yorkshire. Anyway, thank you to the people from Pedal for Parks. Can't remember whether I said this before or not. That's the problem with doing it ad lib without a script. They have changed their name. That was recorded back in late 2021, and they've decided not to be called Pedal for Parks anymore, and they're going to be known as Climate Explorers. And if you want to find all the links, the new links, then if you go to their Twitter page, which is at Climate Explorer without the S on the end, you'll find all the links. So thanks to them. Now, a few bits and pieces before we finish the podcast. First of all, if you'd like to support the podcast, then all you need to do is go to cyclingeurope.org/support, and you can do so on that particular page. If everybody listening to this donated just a small amount, it would make the podcast even more sustainable than it currently is. Now, I've got some jobs to do over the next few weeks. First of all, I'm thinking, this kind of connects with the Baltic Sea cycle route. I've only got one bike, which is my very expensive touring bike, and I don't fancy leaving it at work, at school, potentially for the thieves of the local area. Not that my school is full of thieves, I'm sure it isn't, but I'd rather not take the risk, so I'm thinking of buying a relatively cheap commuting bike. That's my job over the next few weeks. I've committed with another teacher to cycling to work, cycling to school after half term, which is basically at the beginning of March. So I've got another month to get myself sorted with a suitable bike. That, apart from the joy of cycling on a regular basis, is so important for preparing for a long trip. People in the past have said to me, how did you train, how did you prepare? Well, I didn't really for those long cycles. All I was doing is making sure that I was cycling on a regular daily basis to work, and that provided excellent preparation. Now, also in February, the virtual cycle touring festival is on the horizon. I forget the exact dates. It's over the week of my half term, spread over several days and a couple of weekends. So if you go to the Cycle Touring Festival website, you have to Google it for the exact address, then you'll find more details. There are quite a few people speaking at the festival who've previously appeared on the podcast, so that should be interesting if you want to ask your own question. Personally, I'm not giving a talk because basically I've got nothing new to say. But I will hopefully be hosting a few of the events there, so you may well see me pop up at various points, but well worth investigating. Loads of good speakers, Simon Parker for example, quite a few people who, as I said, have appeared on this podcast previously. Right, I've got one last job to do, and that's to finish my walk back home via Ripponden, I think, via the shop. So, hope you've enjoyed the podcast. If you'd like to get in touch, at Cycling Europe on social media, or you can email podcast@cyclingeurope.org. If you'd like to take part, it'd be fantastic to hear from you. Just get in touch and we can start a conversation, or if you've got any comments. And if you do want to rate or review the podcast, then please do so on your preferred podcast purveyor of choice. And I think Spotify recently have started podcast ratings, so it's not just Apple now, it's also Spotify. So if you fancy giving us a rating, then please do so. So until next time, until episode 43 of the Cycling Europe podcast, as I approach the main road again and head down home, thanks for listening, happy cycling and stay safe.